Hello and welcome to CATSweek. I'm Annalise Poorman. At the November 13th meeting of the Monroe County Commissioners, Director of Pantry 279, Cindy Chavez, commented on this year's Thanksgiving food drive. She said the pantry is having a hard time gathering donations and volunteers this year and asked for any assistance that they could get from the commissioners or from the public.
We are trying to feed the 2,500 families this year. This time last year, we were probably at about 1,700 signed up. In the end, we served, I'll give you the exact number here. In the end, we served 2,693 families, which fed 19,689 people. We're a little ahead of schedule this year. We're slightly over 2,100 families. And the count is right around 17,000 people, but they still have another week to sign up. And the article just went out in the paper yesterday. Everybody is going to start hitting panic mode anytime now, and it's going to start hitting hard with the signups. Unfortunately, we do have to cut it at 2,500. Of course, if we get anything extra, we will hand it out the following week, and that's where our extra total will come from. This year, last year, cost of food where nothing donated would have been $90,000 to $95,000. This year, where nothing donated, it's up to $120,000. This is not because of increased people. This is because of the increased cost of food between 2023 and 2024, which we have no control over. Unfortunately, due to hurricane, bad economy, expenses, et cetera, donations are exceptionally down, not only for us, but pretty much every other food pantry, food bank around Monroe County and Indiana. I was hoping, I know you guys are pretty much out of money, especially with the American Rescue Act, but if there's anything at all you could consider, it would be a huge, huge help in us purchasing food to help cover these differences.
Commissioner Penny Githens responded, saying that the Hoosier Hills Food Bank shared that they were having similar struggles.
Donations are down and the need is up. We've heard that from Hoosier Hills Food Bank and from a variety of other sources. But this is a really important program.
Later in the meeting, the commissioners heard an agreement for construction management services for the new Justice Center project. WGS was previously awarded the contract after their bid was accepted by the commissioners. The contract agreement includes both pre-construction and construction work. During public comment on the item, county resident Joe Davis asked for a delay in funding the project until the county has found another location for the new justice facility to be built.
Joe Davis with the taxpayer objection petitioners. We believe it is improper to go ahead and award this contract and start allocating funds toward it until we have looked at the most logical location, the most economical location, the most ethical location for the new justice complex, which is downtown, basically at 302 South Walnut Street, South 302 South College Street, south of 3rd Street. The public owns this land. It's a very large piece of land in town, central, goes as deep as Smith Avenue. That's very deep. We can house everything downtown, simplify the construction process. It can happen much more quickly and much more economically and at much greater savings to the taxpayer if we hold off and we investigate and see that truly the best location is the space at 302 South Walnut in that general vicinity.
Commissioner Penny Githens recounted that the property to which Davis was referring is not big enough for this project.
Mr. Davis, as you heard last night from Mr. McKim, or from Councilmember McKim, that location that you're referring to is not nearly large enough. And we've had experts look at this, and we know that we need between 20 and 25 acres. And so the parcel that you're talking about is just not big enough. And you've heard that before. And so I feel at this point that you know that we voted on this, you know that the council's voted on this, and this is a done deal.
No, your experts that you mentioned, you addressed me. I request an opportunity to answer to your address.
Mr. Cockrell?
He has used his 3 minutes. If so, by rule, he is not allowed to speak more unless you grant him more time.
I don't think there's anything new to hear here, so if there are any other
Well,
comments.
the thing that needs
please
to be
turn off
heard
his-
is that your advisors come from the Southwest where land is cheap and everybody builds on one story.
Mr. Davis, thank you.
The current Justice Building is more than one story, and we can create a new Justice Campus that is more than one story. Thank you.
The next Monroe County Commissioners meeting will be held on November 20th. The Monroe County Stormwater Management Board met on November 13th, where MS4 Coordinator Kelsey Thetonia asked the board to approve schedule changes. Thetonia explained the rationale behind alternating the Stormwater Management Board and the Drainage Board meetings.
It's a lot for me to prepare packets for board meetings in the same week. If we can stagger them, it makes my workload much easier. I'm wondering if we could change the Stormwater Management Board meeting to the first Wednesday of each month. Then I'll have Drainage Board on the second Tuesday. That gives me a little bit more time to prepare packets. So there weren't any major holiday conflicts except for January, so I kept that as the second Wednesday, but everything else should be the first Wednesday. I said this removes the conflict with the Capital Improvement Board meetings, which I think is a benefit. The only close meeting to this is the BZA meeting, Board of Zoning Appeals, at 5:30 p.m. in this room, but I talked to planning. They have it set up very similarly, so we should have plenty of time between those meetings.
The board voted 3-0 to approve these schedule changes, with the understanding that it may need to be adjusted in the future when new members join the board. Next, the board discussed the Stipp Road Construction Contract Award. Board member Tron Enright Randolph commented that paving projects near Stipp Road have made it difficult to access the Cartop Recreation Area.
I attempted to drive down there today, but they're doing a lot of paving, and so there's a lot of unassessed, non-access to the roads down there. And so for the public, if you're trying to kind of get to Car Top or around that area, plan accordingly because they are paving down there.
Board members Penny Githens and Lee Jones remarked that they were glad that the construction was finally going to happen.
I'm just so pleased this is moving forward. We've had the Baby Creek and Stipp Road listed on things for many years now. So
ever since I've been a commissioner, and I think probably for quite a while before then. Yeah, it's exciting when these things that just seem almost like permanent agenda items kind of suddenly take off and happen.
Thetonia said that construction will not take place until 2025 and is contingent upon Duke finishing their utility relocation. The board approved the contract, awarding the construction project to E&B Paving. At the Bloomington Board of Park Commissioners meeting on November 12th, Recreation Services General Manager Leslie Brinson requested that the board approve changes that the staff made to update and improve park policies.
Staff recommends the approval of updates to several policies within the Parks Department Policy Manual. These policies help guide the process and procedures for both staff and the public. We did gather a committee of park staff as well as a park board member and input from legal to update several of these policies. The first policy that we updated was the suspension from property policy 2050. This was a small change, just added the word agents in the sections related to who can enforce rules. So pretty minor change. Policy 11080 is our behavior guidelines. This was a pretty massive overhaul of this policy in an attempt for us to create a comprehensive and centralized list of behavior guidelines for parks and facilities. So we had a lot of behavior that was in several policies. We kind of condensed and created one policy that we believe is a comprehensive list. Some of these address camping, destructive, harvesting and foraging, loitering, interference with the safe passage of park users. And many of the guidelines, again, existed in additional policies that we've just brought into this one policy. So there are some pretty major changes in that policy.
Brinson walked the board through the changes that were made.
Policy 11090 is now entitled Working with Children. We changed the title of this policy, which was Unattended Children, which really wasn't being used or as effective, and so it's now titled Working with Children. We added some information about staff ratios, the rule of three, and reporting procedures for any suspected child abuse. Policy 13040 is now titled Rentals and Permits. We combined the former facility rental rules with a special use policy to include one policy that has all rental and permit guidelines in one position. Therefore, we deleted policy 13070, facility rules, because we incorporated it into the special use policy. Policy 13080, park hours. We added information about the use of trails for transportation purposes only during times that are outside of normal park hours. So even though the park is closed, as long as you're using the trail for transportation outside of those hours, that is allowed. Policy 13090, animals in parks. This title was animal restrictions. We've changed it to animals in general in parks. And we included references on the Bloomington Code as well as leash dogs outside of them being in the dog park. So just fine-tuned that policy a little bit. Policy 13230, abandoned possessions, is a new policy outlining the procedure for handling unattended items on park property. The policy outlines the efforts to collect items for either lost and found purposes versus those that will be discarded. After 30 days, any item stored will be disposed of or destroyed. This policy, I believe, is similar to a BPD policy that now we have in our policy manual. Policy 13240, foraging, is a new policy that outlines guidelines for the use of city parks to protect the ecosystem and promote sustainable use of parks. This is, again, a brand new policy that just talks about what you can and cannot do as far as picking plants and where you can walk, and Rebecca could probably talk more about that one, but it's a new policy about sustainability in our parks.
Board President Kathleen Mills commented on the policy updates.
Well, I know it was kind of unwieldy before, and there was duplication, and yeah. So, although I understand for liability reasons, though I was a little disappointed to see that you're not allowed to climb trees, but I understand.
Board member Israel Herrera asked a follow-up question on the policy regarding the disposal of lost items. Brinson responded.
What's the difference between dispose and destroy? When is the decision taken? After 30 days of,
Things that are destroyed. You wanted to take it? Things that are destroyed are things that are like soiled, that might be perishable, that might be of danger or a safety hazard to our staff or somebody. Those would be destroyed, as opposed to disposed of, which might just be like a sleeping bag that's been unclaimed for 30 days.
The board voted unanimously to approve the policy updates. On November 12th, the Monroe County Council approved the purchase of the North Park property for the purpose of constructing a new jail. The council approved the purchase agreement by a 5-1 vote in the amount of $11.375 million. County Attorney Jeff Cockrell explained the purchase agreement for the property, which is located at the northwest corner of I-69 and State Road 46.
This is an agreement that the commissioners approved at I believe it was their meeting last week. The property owner has signed off on the agreement, and according with state law, the county council also has to approve the terms and conditions of the agreement. Prior to it being formalized, the agreement is for the purchase of land in North Park, which is basically at the corner of I-69 and State Road 46, back in the little area back there, just northwest of that corner. The county owns a lot of property in that area that we purchased for the what is eventually going to be a quarry park. The purchase price is $11,375,000. This is for the intended purpose of this purchase is for the justice facility, including the courts and all the related accoutrements. We've talked about this property, this process, this a lot, so I don't want to go into too many details. I am aware that there were a couple of questions from one of the council people about some of the related costs that are in this document. One is there's a shared cost for a roadway in the document. I talked with Paul Satterley, and he estimated that roadway would cost between $400,000 and $800,000. Again, that would be a shared cost with the seller. So I thought that would be something you'd want to know.
Councilmember Marty Hawk asked about the accessibility of the property. Cockrell said access would likely come off of Hunter Valley Road, which he believes would be more visible.
I was at a meeting this morning with Ellisville folks, and one of the questions that was asked of me was, would the court systems be more visible from the road rather than the jail? In other words, where will the court system be? Will it be closer to the road, closer to the highway?
I guess I would assume, and Scott Carnegie's in the audience and he can throw stuff at me if he thinks I'm answering it incorrectly, but I believe the goal is to have the court systems at kind of the closer to the Hunter Valley Road, which if we looked at the site, we're buying property off that would come off 46 onto Hunter Valley, that it would be closer to, and really more visible from the 46 as you're driving by as well, and that the jail would be more tucked away as kind of outside more of the direct line of sight. And I think that's for both aesthetic reasons, as in people are going to come and they're going to want to go to the courts. People who are entering that area will want to go to the courts and those related facilities, whereas law enforcement would have more of the entry and need to utilize the jail portion of it. I met with Mr. Carnegie last week, and we were talking about having maybe even a one single entrance, and to the right you would go to the jail side, and to the left you would go to the court side. So from a person visiting the facility actually going there, I think it would be equally accessible.
Councilmember Jeff McKim questioned Cockrell on the cost of the roadway and the wastewater treatment plant. Cockrell said that the numbers are rough calculations at the moment.
Just to confirm that, so the cost of the roadway could be as much, our cost could be as much as $400,000.
Correct.
And the expansion of the wastewater treatment plant could be as much as $3 million.
Could be what?
And I guess I would just, the cost of the shared roadway, right? We haven't done design. We haven't designed it out. There may be much more infrastructure such as roads and all those kind of things that are involved with this project than what's in this document. We just know that there's going to be a shared roadway that will help the outlots. I assume there'll be more than one. The outlots that will also serve this property, and so we discussed how we were going to share the cost of that road segment.
So I guess what I'm getting at is just to confirm that all of these costs have already been included in the notional budget and the soft costs of the notional budget that we were provided when we decided on the tax rate and so on.
I believe so.
During final comments, Councilmember Jennifer Crossley acknowledged the contentious and controversial nature of the new jail initiative, but said that she believes the County Council has done their due diligence through the process.
We've come a long way, and obviously we still have a lot to go and a lot of this, but this is the main thing that we were tasked to do. Has it been contentious at times? Yes. Has it been messy at times? Absolutely. But I think I appreciate the fact that we have been able to have the conversation that we had a few weeks ago with the commissioners and the council. I think we have done our due diligence. We've tried really hard to look at a lot of different properties. We've had some cooperation. We've had not some good cooperation, and it's not just with our county government. I appreciate the fact that the commissioners actually listened and, looked at the Vernal property. And I will say a couple of weeks ago, and listening to that meeting, I said it then and I'll say it again for this larger part of the conversation, is that it's just not gonna work. And again, as we've talked about and as we've seen, and I don't want to pick on them, but they're the prime example of what won't work when you first open it, is the new hospital. We will be doomed from day one if we decide to go on, different, if we decided to pick, for example, Vernal, and that happened, we would have been doomed on day one. We already know that Kim Fox said, mess around, find out. If you pick that, choose other words to put in there, but you get what I'm saying. We don't want to mess around and we don't want to find out at all. I think that would be too costly, and dollar-wise and human lives and just a lot of different things. I'm glad we are coming to the end of this, because I think a lot of us have said in different meetings that, nobody feels good about this, whether you want to believe it or not. But at the end of the day, I think I can go home and I can feel better and feeling comfortable in knowing that we've done what we've tried to do. We're not going to make everybody happy, because if we made everybody happy, that's a cult-like, and we already know what cults look like. But that being said, I say all that to say that I feel comfortable with North Park. It took me a while to get to this point, but I am here. And I've heard from constituents and all over. And again, we're not going to make everybody happy. We're not going to make everybody happy. I'm sure people on the Zoom will send me an email or find some way to contact and say, didn't like it. But at least we know that we had this conversation out loud. We've allowed this to continue to go on, but time is of the essence and time is money. And we have to continue to move forward.
The council voted 5-1 in support of the purchase agreement. The Ellettsville Town Council approved a salary ordinance at their meeting November 12th. The ordinance allows for the creation of unfunded positions not included in the budget to address emergency needs. The unfunded aspect of the new positions initially caused confusion among some of the council members. Clerk Treasurer Noel Conyer clarified that while the positions are not budgeted, they are placeholders to cover sudden vacancies in full-time roles.
If the planning tech utilities building clerk left and Denise needed somebody and she was able to go through her resumes and hire somebody quickly for a part-time planning tech, that's why that would be in there, because she wouldn't be able to have a planning tech in her budget if that full-time position is filled. But it's just so that we wouldn't waste any time having to go before the council for 2 meetings to get a part-time person in there to help her in her office.
Conyers emphasized that the emergency positions have appeared in the salary ordinance before. Council President William Ellis agreed with keeping the emergency roles as long as they stayed unfunded until needed. The council passed the ordinance with a 4-1 vote. Next, resident Scott Reynolds, who has been a vocal opponent of the new tech park rezoning, asked about a public records request that he submitted over a month ago.
In this case, I'm just interested in transparency and accountability, responsible use of our community resources, and making sure people are fully informed.
He clarified that he had no hidden motives, just a desire for government transparency. The next Ellettsville Town Council meeting will be on November 25th. And that is all for CATSweek. Thank you for joining us. For CATS and WFHB, I'm Annalise Poorman.